Well, welcome everyone to Love vs. Hate. My name is Anne, and I'm your old-fashioned nerd.
And I'm Emily, your mainstream millennial.
And on this podcast, Emily and I like to debate and argue about all the things in life that we love and hate.
And most times we don't agree.
It is true. But, you know, we might agree on a couple for this episode because we're going to be talking about podcasts.
Ooh, what a concept.
I know, right? It's like Inception. We're talking about podcasts on a podcast within a podcast of a podcast. Yeah, no.
We're a podcast talking about podcasts.
Yeah, it's really only 2 layers deep, I guess. I wanted to try and make it cool and make it more, but it's really
okay,
just
we
the
can make
2.
it more. Anne is on 3 podcasts.
Oh, that's true.
You can listen to all 3 at the same time while you're listening to this one that's talking about other podcasts. Okay, now that's Inception.
Wow, that's Inception right there. Ooh, Emily did it. Okay, thank you. Good job.
I did it. Thank you.
Praise.
Thank you.
Praise. Anyway, but before we get into podcasts, we've been doing this thing on our social pages where we talk about our weekly obsessions. And I think it's really fun. And so we wanted to actually bring it onto the podcast as well. If you guys have weekly obsessions, definitely let us know. But Emily, let's start with you. What is your weekly obsession this week?
Okay, so I started this show. It's on Hulu. And I'm almost done with it. I mean, it's only 1 season and it's only 10 episodes and the episodes are 22 minutes long. But still,
that's you binged.
I binged 4 episodes in one night.
Yeah, that's
so
decent.
it's a little bit controversial.
Oh, you like controversial stuff, I feel like.
It's called A Teacher.
I've never heard of it.
So it's basically about this woman who becomes a high school teacher at this new school that she's working at, and then she makes friends with the French teacher. She's an English teacher, and they're like, oh my gosh, we're young women and we're cool, we're teachers together, woo. And then in her English class is this boy, and they have a little, like, she's mentoring him.
Wait, I think I saw a trailer for this. Do they like have some kind of affair?
Yes. So, yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Do you like the show?
So, I'm on episode 7, or I've just finished episode 7, and there's 10 episodes. And the first, half of the show was really good because it was the actual affair, and it was like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen, blah blah blah. And now we're past the affair, and you're kind of just like, okay, the exciting stuff is kind of over now, so what else is gonna happen? But I mean, okay, this is why I think I like it so much, is because the main actor is Nick Robinson, and I really love Nick Robinson.
Oh, okay, got it.
So he plays Simon in Love, Simon. Have you ever seen that one?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so it's that guy.
Okay. I probably will not watch because I don't like that.
Yeah.
It is too controversial for me. Can't do it.
Yeah, definitely controversial. It's an illicit affair.
Yeah.
Shout out to Taylor Swift.
We always got to throw Tay-Tay in the mix whenever we get an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I would say Taylor Swift is my obsession, but she's my obsession every week.
Yeah, so. We would get over that very quickly. I'm already over it.
Wow. Okay, Anne, well then what's your weekly obsession?
So I'm also in the entertainment industry as well. My weekly obsession is Wolfwalkers. Have you ever heard of it?
Wolf of Wall Street.
No. Completely different.
Balto.
Closer. So
Wolfwalkers
is a movie that came out on Apple TV. I didn't have Apple TV. I have no reason to get Apple TV, but I was like, I watched the trailer for this, and I recommend to all our listeners, just look up the Wolfwalkers trailer. If you know anything about me, I watched them, this movie was made for me. I could not resist it. So I signed up for the 7-day free trial because I'm I'm watching this movie. It was so good. I watched it one night and then I watched it again the next night.
Oh my god.
I didn't want to because I was I really want to savor it, and not but I just had to. It was so good. I had to watch it again. It was really good. I liked it a lot. It's by the same people who made Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea. They deal in 2D sort of look and style. So it's very almost kind of flat if that makes sense. And it's very fairy tale, so it's kind of like, it's more, it's very beautiful in their design, but it's also like more simple figures, if that makes sense. But it's all animated. But
Interesting.
anyway, it takes place in like the 1600s in England, where a father and daughter move to a new town, and the dad is there specifically to kill the wolf pack that's in the forest because they've been causing trouble. And then as we learn, the daughter like really wants to help her dad, and there's all these restrictions, but she eventually gets out into the forest and meets a Wolfwalker and then become friends, and then things go down because she has to help her friend, but she also has to maybe she has to like choose which kind of path she wants to take, basically. So it's really good, very fairy tale-esque, lots of those kind of themes, and I loved it. It was really good.
I have to ask, did you watch anything else on the free trial that you had, or just that?
I looked. I figured I might as well look. I didn't see anything appealing.
What? Not
What?
even the daily, what is the one with Steve Carell and Jennifer Aniston, and there's like a news, like it's supposed to be a news show. I think it's called The Daily something. I don't remember.
Well, you're welcome, listeners, for educating you on all these things. Yeah.
There are so many good Apple TV shows that I feel
Really?
like people are always talking about.
Oh.
I've never heard of
missed
that
out.
one, the Wolfwalkers, but
It came out pretty recently. I don't know if you would like it. Do you like fairy tale kind of stuff? I feel like you definitely
Probably not.
wouldn't like it as much as I do. I think you would probably be like, that was okay. Like, I don't think you would hate it. You would probably be okay watching it, but it wouldn't be your favorite by any means. Which I feel like is a lot of the things that I show you. You're like, I guess. Unless it has to do with space. Then you're just like, hard pass.
true.
But anyway, we should move on to our main topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is podcasts. And I'm super excited. I love podcasts.
I'm indifferent. No, but I kind of it's kind of weird because I have a podcast, but I don't always listen to podcasts because I kind of like go in these flows where I'm either all into a book that I'm reading, or I'm all into a podcast and I binge the podcast, or I'm like obsessed with the TV show that I'm watching. It's kind of weird.
Honestly, that's probably in a way healthy because you're not, like you're just paying attention to one thing and you're not getting distracted like all the time. Because that's a problem I fall into, of where I'm like, oh, I just, listened to or I just watched an hour episode, but I didn't listen to my podcast, and then I end up like going down a bunny trail or a rabbit hole. Bunny trail? Is that the same thing?
I've never heard anybody say bunny trail. I've
Am I the
only heard
first?
rabbit hole.
Bunny trail?
Where did that come from?
I don't know. It sounds more positive than rabbit hole, though, so I'm going with it.
I just go down a bunny trail.
You never know where those bunnies go. Where are they going?
Oh my god.
That's the same concept.
That's
Anyway.
so funny. Yeah, I guess. I will say the only exception is I normally every week will listen to Crime Junkies.
And this is one thing Emily and I, moment, like, we actually agree. I also love Crime Junkies.
So good.
So good.
Like, when I first discovered them, I think I don't know how many episodes they had out, probably like 50 or 60.
Yeah, you
And
introduced me to Crime Junkie.
Yeah, I was like obsessed with listening to every episode. Like,
Yeah.
I binged that. And then I was like, and listen to this. And then you binged that.
Yep.
And now I'm all caught up, sadly. So I can only listen to one every week. I could probably re-listen and I wouldn't remember any of them except for
that's a fair point.
the one that I always remember about that missing kid. Who so
There's
descriptive,
a lot of
Emily.
missing kids. So.
The missing kid, I'm pretty sure his name was Brian and he had red hair.
Oh, the one where
From
he
school.
like literally just disappeared.
Yeah,
There's
he
no
just like
trace
was
what,
supposed to drive home from school.
Yeah, I know what one you're talking about.
Yeah, that one. Crazy.
Yeah, and Crime Junkie, for anyone who doesn't know, for any of our listeners, it's a true crime podcast. So they talk about murders, missing people, serial killers. Like, they kind of do all of it.
All sorts of
stuff. And I think the thing for me with Crime Junkie, though, is I can't binge it. If I binge too much, I start to just freak out, and I'm like, like, I have to take it in, like, waves. I have to, like, listen to one or two, and then, okay, I gotta take a break for a little while.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. There's
That's
just something
true.
about, like, the way that the Ashley Flowers is the main host, and I think she just does a really good job at presenting the story in a captivating way, and you're just very intrigued by it. But it's also it kind of makes me sad, like, the majority of the time.
Yeah. I really like how they have a web page that you can go to and, like, see any photos or videos that they talk about and reference in the podcast, because then it just makes it even more real, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is the person that they're talking about.
Well, yeah, and that's why I do support, like, I like their mission, because their whole idea is that we, you know, keeping these stories and these cases top of mind is the best way to help them. Because the more eyes you get on it and the more attention, like, the more pressure there is on, you know, investigators, but then also hopefully someone who might know something can come forward and say something. So it's a good, like, I can definitely support that. But yeah, after a while, I'm like, whew.
And also they are always teaching us to be weird, be rude, stay alive.
Yes.
I'm like,
and
yes.
I can get behind that 100%.
Yeah.
So for me, other than, like, I do like true crime. Oh, speaking of true crime, I forced Emily to listen to The Wind of Change.
Ooh.
Highly recommend. It was one of my weekly obsessions, so throwback to weekly obsessions. And it is really good. If you're looking for any kind of investigative journalism podcast, I recommend. It's only 8 episodes, so you don't have to, like, you can listen to it and then it sort of resolves. Spoilers. And so you don't, you know, it's not necessarily a continuation, but it's a really good, like, little documentary podcast, just 8 episodes. So good. Highly recommend.
Highly recommend to not listen. Skip.
You liked it. You just didn't like how it ended.
Yeah, but the ending just made me feel like I wasted my time.
Ugh. Spoilers. I thought the ending was amazing. I loved all of it. I loved everything about it. It was so good.
No. But I will say, I did get excited. I was watching, what movie was it? I think it was The Interview.
Oh, yeah, and they played the
randomly
song.
At the end of the movie, they played the song, and I was like, and
I
remember Change.
Yeah, and for listeners who don't know, I'll give, like, just a brief synopsis. So The Wind of Change is a song by the Scorpions, and they're a German band who you probably know from Rockin' Like a Hurricane. Dun, dun. That's, like, their most famous song. But they also wrote this rock ballad that is called Wind of Change, and it's was released in the 80s, and it's all kind of about, like, you know, the young people kind of rising up and making change, and, like, it literally takes place in Moscow. Like, they talk about the parks that are in Moscow and stuff like that. So a lot of people believe that it was a strong influence in, like, the Russian culture at the time, and it was a large part of, well, maybe not a large part, but it was a part of bringing down, like, the wall and, like, the change that really happened in the East during the Cold War, because it was a cultural movement. And so this New York Times reporter, hears a story that the CIA wrote Wind of Change, and he just can't get this idea out of his head. So he starts to investigate, is this actually real? So if you want to learn more, listen to the podcast, but that's kind of an idea of what it's about.
That was a good overview.
Thank you. I try.
If I tried that, it wouldn't have gone well.
Emily, what kind of podcasts do you like? Like, what's your topics that you usually go for?
So I like true crime. I just like the host of Crime Junkie, Ashley Flowers. So I listen to her other podcast called Very Presidential, which is kind of shocking. Like, I never thought that I would listen to that, because politics and history aren't things that I really am excited about. But this podcast actually makes it interesting, because it's all about, hey, let's talk about this random president in the past and see what really went on that we might not know about as much. It's not in the history books and all the scandal that happened that we probably have never heard about in history class. So that's kind of interesting. Never thought that I would like it, but, you know, here I am listening to it. Then I for a while in 2020, I was listening every morning to the Up First podcast, which is an NPR podcast.
I love NPR.
Yeah. But that kind of got depressing because every day it was just about the coronavirus, so I stopped listening to that.
Then it was about the election, and yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm good. Bye.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's good, like 15 minutes to start your day off with the news, but if you want to be just hearing about coronavirus and politics every day, maybe not. I don't know. Up to you.
Well, maybe maybe you can give it another shot in 2021. Maybe 2021 will be more positive. I mean, I'm saying that with hope, I think, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. So the last category of podcast. Oh, actually, I really like Gruntled, which is Anne and her sister's podcast, because it's just random knowledge and stories that's like really fun to learn about.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one too. Biased.
One that I find myself going back to every week or going back to every so often and binging her episodes is Katie Bellatti's podcast, Thick and Thin. And she's like a YouTuber and kind of an influencer. And I just think that she's very artistic in the way that she thinks, and the subjects that she talks about are a lot different than other podcasts like hers. Like she talks about some topics are, why do we wear white wedding dresses? Why do people get down on one knee to propose? Like, where did that come from? And then kind of relating it to like something that happened to her life or something more recent that like matters to her. Yeah, so it's kind of a little like she brings in history every so often on her episodes, but then she also relates it. So that's kind of why I like it.
Yeah, and that actually leads well into like one of my top like podcasts that I really love listening to is those like research or investigative or journalistic type podcasts. So 99% PI is a big one. All of these I got introduced to by my sister. There's a reason we do Gruntled. We genuinely like talking about those like overlooked and unexpected kind of stories throughout history, throughout people, or just like things that you don't ever think about. And 99% PI is all about that. It's like it stands for 99% invisible. So those things that you just never notice, things that you never think about. And they just have a lot of really good content. I just love, and it's very investigative. I also love on that particular podcast, they interview a lot of people. So it's very journalistic, like they do a lot of work. Also, Roman Mars, who's the host, has just one of those, he's got like one of those voices that just like is very pleasing to listen to. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. One of my favorite episodes is about the shipping forecast. Highly recommend listening to it. It's a good introduction to what 99% PI is like. So if you want to
shipping forecast?
Yeah. See,
is that like when you go on Amazon and it's like expected delivery?
Similar, but think like 1800s, like old, like it's like literal wooden ships, ships at sea. You're on the right thought, but no, kind of completely different.
That's so funny.
But yeah, no, the shipping forecast. So a guy, you know, when they were first learning about like how to try and predict the weather, because a lot of ships would get lost at sea simply because they couldn't predict storms and they couldn't know, like, oh, if I actually, you know, stay in port for an extra day, I'll skip this storm. Like, they had no way of gauging that. And so once that technology started to become more available, a guy would put out on the radio, like, the shipping forecast. So it would say, like, oh, in this location, expect winds to be from the southwest at this speed, you know, and, like, that was the whole idea. It's before like radar or modern technology. Like that's what it was.
Okay.
And it's interesting because obviously the shipping forecast really isn't needed anymore because, you know, we have modern technology and ships don't need to know by radio. Like they have like sonar and whatever. They have GPS that basically can tell them those things. But there's this whole culture that just loves the shipping forecast because when you listen to it, it is kind of this weird like lulling, kind of nice, just like, I don't know, you have to listen to the episode. Highly recommend. It's very interesting. So 99% PI, love that. I also love Stuff You Should Know. So Stuff You Should Know is two guys, Josh and Chuck, and they pick a topic, and it can be anything. It could be about a person, it could be about a product, it could be about a moment in history. Like, literally, the whole idea is it's stuff you should know. And there's a lot of really just interesting stories, and I always learn a lot of fun new facts from them, and I absolutely love, they kind of have like a really strong banter, because they both do their own independent research, and then they come together as a team, and they just talk about it. So it's very conversational, but also super informative, and just really, really good. And of course, my other big favorite in this sort of like history genre, fun, interesting facts that you might not know, is of course the Memory Palace. It is my sister's favorite podcast in all of time and history. She absolutely loves it. And it's hosted by Nate DeMeo. And again, he's got a really good just like storyteller voice, and it just works so well for podcasting. And he's just telling these beautiful stories in a really beautiful way. And it's just, I cannot recommend. The other thing I like about the Memory Palace is they tend to be shorter. Some episodes are as short as like 6 minutes. Some are a little longer, around like 18 or 20. So you can choose kind of like what you have time for. Like a lot of times if I'm like, oh, I'm just running to the grocery store, it's going to be a 10-minute drive, I'll find like a short Memory Palace to like listen to. So that's the other reason I also really like that one. So highly recommend all of those, especially if you're into history or fun, weird facts. All of those are excellent choices.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I don't know how I forgot this. Office Ladies.
Yes.
I love Jenna Fisher. Okay, I'll be honest. I haven't listened in a really long time, and I'm very behind. But I love Jenna Fisher, as some of you may or may not know. We are on a mission for Jenna Fisher to know that I love her.
Yes. Listeners, if any one of you out there knows any kind of way, if you have any kind of connection to Jenna Fisher, you have to let us know and help us, because Emily is literally her biggest fan. There is no other fan out there who is bigger fan of Jenna Fisher than Emily. So these two need to connect. It is one of the, I have a very strong feeling it's going to happen because of this podcast. So
yeah, and because of listening to Office Ladies, we learned that I am Jenna and Anne is Angela. In one of the episodes, yes. I was literally like, is she describing us?
I know, it was creepy. It was like for 3 solid minutes, like this interaction that was happening between Angela and Jenna was literally me and Emily, because Angela was talking about like Star Wars, and Jenna was like, no, I've not seen it. Or she was like, I can't remember the exact interaction, but it was literally insane.
I think they were like, okay, so Angela was like, I love Star Wars, and Jenna was like, I think I maybe watched it like part of one, but then I got bored and fell asleep. And like, I was like, that literally happened to me.
And then Angela is so offended, and I agree with her completely. Like, how dare you? So yeah, that is definitely a fun one. That is kind of two best friends talking. Like, it's kind of similar to what we're doing, of course.
Yeah.
For me, my other big topic, of course, like dirt. Everybody's gonna be like that once they realize what my next topic of podcast is.
Oh, I have a feeling.
Can you guess?
I have a feeling it has to do with the M word.
The McElroys?
No. The McElroys.
No, Emily. Yes, I am in love with basically everything the McElroys put out, especially my Bim Bam, and oh my gosh, the Adventure Zone. So good. Also, Sawbones is probably my favorite out of the like married, because they each of the like couples, like the brothers and their wives, like each have a podcast. Sawbones is probably my favorite out of the 3, although I like all of them. But Sawbones is another, it kind of fits into the genre of like history and knowledge and investigative, because they talk about like old medical history and like weird things that happened and like how we basically like have gotten to modern medicine. So super interesting. Highly recommend. They do a lot of good stuff on like the coronavirus as well. Very informative. So anything the McElroys produce, so good.
Oh. I'm trying to like think of any of the, is one of them named Justin?
Yes.
Okay, that's the only one I can remember. Noah?
No.
Jonah?
No.
No, that's your roommate's cat. Evan?
No.
Jonah? No, I already guessed Jonah. Yep, I only got Justin.
Justin, Travis, and Griffin.
Oh.
Yeah, you weren't gonna get there.
It was gonna take me a while.
But they're so hilarious. There's just something about their humor and just there's something about them that I love. It just jives with me so perfectly. And also they're mega nerds. They're just hilarious. They also just blend really well together because they're brothers. Like they get each other's humor really well, and it's so fun to just listen to. And I love the Adventure Zone. The Adventure Zone is what got me into D&D. So
thanks a lot.
But yeah, I also love like D&D podcasts. There's a lot out there. I have not listened to as many as I'd like to, but Critical Role, The Adventure Zone, and I listened to one called Bombarded that's actually pretty fun. You probably would like it, Emily, because it's a band in real life. They're a band, I believe in Texas, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, they're a band in real life, and they play D&D, and they're all bards. So every episode, they come up with like a song, and they write their own little song each episode, and it's really fun. Yeah, maybe you wouldn't like it. Okay, sorry, fine. Just trying to make bridges.
I don't even know what a bard is. Is that like a maiden that works in a bar who sings? No, that's not right.
A bard is like a minstrel or like a entertainer or like a
minstrel.
Yeah, a bard. Like they have I can't believe you don't know what a bard is.
How do you spell it?
BARD.
Oh.
They like play a lute and drums.
A lute? You mean a flute?
No, a lute. You don't know what a lute is?
Is that like a recorder?
Oh.
I don't know anything about this world, Anne.
Yeah.
I only know my world.
You only know the real world. A lute is it's kind of like a guitar, I guess, if you want.
I was way off.
Oh my gosh, listeners, I wish you could have seen Emily's like reaction. Like her whole head jerked. She was like, wow.
I was totally picturing a recorder.
No, a lute. It's like six, well, there's different string sizes, but it's usually larger. You know how guitars are like, they've got the like S shape? A lute is like more round with a long neck.
So like a banjo?
I mean, in the same way that a banjo and guitar are the same.
We're getting caught up all in the details
right.
of bards. This episode isn't about bards.
We could make one about bards.
But seriously, I want to know, what is your favorite podcast or podcasts to listen to? Because I feel like I only know the top stuff and the stuff that I just always listen to. So if there's a podcast that you really love, you should let us know. You can let us know on our Instagram or our Facebook or our Twitter at Love vs. Hate Podcasts, or you can send us an email at lovevshatepodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, we would love that so much.
Gotta get some new recs.
If we're your favorite podcast and you have feedback for us, we also definitely welcome that. So you can also do that as well.
Or leave us a review telling us why you like us.
Yeah, any of those options are good, and we would love that, and we truly appreciate it.
Yeah, do what you want.
So, Emily, what is your life lesson?
My life lesson is, if you don't want to waste your time, you can skip Wind of Change and just listen to the song instead. I love having life lessons that just piss Anne off.
It's absolutely true. Now I
what
have
about
to
you,
think
Anne?
one for Emily.
You can't piss me off.
I think I could if I really wanted to, but I don't want to. That's the thing. That's the big difference. Is I don't want to, but Emily wants to. My life lesson, genuinely, is to try one of those podcasts that I mentioned that's like about history, because even if you're not a big history person, I guarantee that on either Stuff You Should Know, 99% Invisible, The Memory Palace, even maybe Gruntled, like on any of those, you'll find a topic that you actually would be interested in and you'll enjoy it. You don't have to necessarily listen to them all, but I can guarantee that you would find an episode that you would genuinely enjoy. So give them a try.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that those history-based podcasts are for entertainment. They're not for a high school classroom setting where they need to teach you this. Like,
exactly.
Obviously, they want to make it as entertaining and intriguing as they can.
Yeah.
So they're actually going to be interesting to listen to.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
That was so nice of you.
Am I forgiven?
Yes.